Okay, so now as you can see, I got all my preliminary solid black shading done in all the areas that I needed them done in, and I'm moving on to the medium shade of gray. And what I'm going to be doing is basically breaking it down with the same formula I was with the black. I'm going to be utilizing, working with the amount of space that I have to work with, and that's going to have a direct correlation to how far I bring out my shading in this next pass. So again, just to reiterate, the larger the area, the longer and more drawn out, and the greater the gradation is and the value I'm going to break down my gray shading. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with the same area I worked with before and work my way around, and then just slowly break down the shading with this next step. I'm going to be starting again in the same spot in the upper right part. I'm going to go ahead and start out with the leading edge of the wing, so you see the actual difference in the value of gray and how it breaks down. And I'm going to gently and very lightly work my way into the pre-existing shading, darkening it up and then lightening back up as I work my way out. Now, another thing you're going to notice too, when you're working with black and gray, the lighter the gray is that you're using to break it down, the more you're going to notice the irritated skin underneath. Because once you're working with colors, whether it be black or any other color for that matter, when you're tattooing, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're always going to cause irritated skin. Now once you start working with colors or shades of gray that are lighter than the red or pinkish hue that causes when you irritate the skin, it's going to distort your vision and the color a little bit. When I'm working with a medium shade of gray that's actually lighter than the redness of the irritated skin underneath, that's going to start showing through and become more visible than the actual shade of ink that I'm using in there. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want to build it up too much to the point where you're covering up all that irritated skin, because that's going to create a darker value of gray than what you're actually looking for. So you kind of have to keep that in mind, and that also comes with practice. Okay, the more times you do black and gray tattoos, and the more times you work with those different shades of gray and different values of gray and breaking it down, you kind of have to wait and have the client come back and see how it heals, and reference that according to how you put it in. And again, the only way to do that is with practice. That comes with tattooing enough people and enough variations on how you break down your gray and what's going to work best for you and have the best result as far as healing goes. So again, as you see, as I went over that and I made that first pass with my gray, it looks a lot more red than it actually will be when it is healed. All that redness and irritation will go away. But that being said, you want to keep in mind that that redness will always be there no matter what when you're actually tattooing. So you want to do your best to try to visualize what that shading is going to look like without that irritated skin in there. Because you want to make sure you get enough of the ink in there to have the proper breakdown of your grays. But you don't want it too light. So right now I have it right about where I want it. It doesn't look quite as smooth as it will once the redness subsides, but believe me, it will be there. And again, the only way to see that is to have your client come back when it's healed. The redness and irritated skin will actually start to subside approximately a couple hours or so after the tattoo is done and completed, and it'll gradually start to go away over the next few days to a week or so until the tattoo and the skin is completely healed, in which case you'll actually see the complete done healed result. So again, now that I finished that area, I'm just going to go ahead and start gradually working my way around. As I was saying before, I tend to break my inks down when I'm doing a complete solid black and gray piece through and through from beginning to end with no color in it whatsoever, and I'm utilizing skin tone as a highlight source. I generally break my inks down into 3 different stages, which again, to reiterate, is straight black ink, then my secondary ink, which is the medium shade, which is what I'm doing right now, is approximately, I would say, about 25 to 30% black ink, and the rest is water. And then my final pass with my black and gray ink is usually approximately about between 1 to 3 drops parts black ink to the rest water, which, you know, is somewhere around 5 to 10% maybe black ink to 100 or to 95 to 90% water. Now, that again is something that is going to vary from artist to artist, and the only way to deduce what is going to work best for you as an artist is experience. So you can start off using the dilution rate, what I use, break that down, see how well that works for you, and no matter what the result you get, it's generally a good idea to kind of play around with that, you know. Use different dilution rates, break it down, you know. Some people like to use 10 or 12 different steps, you know, and breaking that down. Some people kind of just make it up as they go along, you know. They'll take straight black ink and then just dip it directly in water and dilute it as they move on to each particular area. That's a much freer, I don't want to say rougher way to do it, but that works very, very extremely well for some people. And it all really depends on your style and what works, you know, what's more comfortable with you as an artist.